Hello everyone. I have with me CA Piyush Kothari, AIR 9, AIR 8, I'm sorry. And Piyush, many congratulations. And 89 in AFM, that is kind of the headline and the showstopper. So tell us, Piyush, how has been your journey to reach 89 in AFM? How did you crack it in probably the most difficult exam of AFM?
Thank you, sir. Thanks for that introduction, firstly. In terms of AFM preparation, I feel I did not do anything extraordinary or out of the box. I think the thing that worked for me was doing the basics right. I was like, I referred your book for AFM and I did around 3 revisions of your book in study leave period. And one thing that I used to do was I used to scribble the solutions without looking at the actual solution which is printed on your book. So that somewhere down the line, I feel helped me to build my concepts because I did not read your solutions. So whatever I was solving was trying to think on my own, trying to understand as to different nuances of a question. And I feel in hindsight, if a student is merely reviewing solutions, he might miss little tricky points of questions, which when we see the same question in exam and when we are reading that question very in detail, at those points of time, I feel we might get confused as to whether there is some different meaning of that particular word in the question. So I feel one thing that I did slightly different or I would recommend others to do would be solve solutions without looking at the actual solution which is given in the book. And then if you want, you can just tally the figures, or if the figure is tallying, you can just move on to the next question. So that is something people should do. And secondly, I think one thing which was really helpful was being conceptually very clear. I think people in practical papers do tend to make the mistake that they do not read the concept book a lot. But although I agree with that ultimately it's a practical paper and you have to solve sums, but still being conceptually very clear is going to be very important, especially in a paper like AFM of May 2026, which was like there were no similar questions. Everything was a different question. And if you are conceptually clear, then only you will be able to handle such questions. So I think these were 2 points: being conceptually very clear and trying to solve solutions without looking at the actual solution in book, which hopefully worked for me.
Okay, but when we say conceptual clarity, now there is a lot of questions in the mind of a student that how do I build conceptual clarity? Is it that I need to review new sums, new material, different, or the core focus should be on the existing material only? How do we build that in the hindsight of the May 26 and Jan 26 papers?
Okay, so building conceptual clarity, I feel is first in terms of number of questions. I feel there is no need to solve like all the questions that have been asked in history of ICI. I think more or less you can just refer your faculty books and try and cover the latest RTPs and MTPs of your attempt. I think that is in terms of some sufficient. For building conceptual clarity, what a couple of things what students can do is firstly, what I used to have a test for myself was if someone asks me what is a concept, what is discounted cash flow, can I explain it to him in simplistic terms in Hindi or whatever language you speak with yourself? Can you explain to that person in very simplistic terms what that concept means? I think if you are able to do that broadly, you are conceptually very clear. And second thing, what one can do is if he's not able to understand a concept very well, he can obviously, now there is AI, Claude, and Chat GPT. I did not use that a lot in the initial stages of my study leave, but yeah, slowly and steadily, I started realizing that having conversation with Claude, that in itself, because I was reading so much, that over the course of time will build conceptual clarity when you are reading different things. And they will also come up with some new points which you will come to know. So I think in terms of being conceptually clear, I think more or less this will be sufficient. That whenever you are not able to understand something, try and ask AI, or there obviously everyone has a friend or someone who they keep on discussing with. So you can ask with each other. You can obviously ask faculties. So I think that is broadly enough. There is no
Okay.
need to refer something out of the box, some different material.
Yeah, that is very reassuring because as of now, people are now kind of running left, right to kind of cover more and more. And to be honest, it is almost impossible to cover everything which is there in terms of finding the exact question because maybe this paper is AI generated and you will not have a similar pattern repeating. But tell me in terms of the mind game, first of all, you see a paper, you score 89 in that, that is a fab. But when you see a paper, did you did you kind of panic? Did you feel scared? How did you handle the mental part of it? Concept you can build, but in those 3 hours, how did you tackle that?
Yeah, so the initial 15 minutes of reading time were very difficult. I will not lie about that. When I saw the paper for first time, I was like, just you just get a chance to glance through the questions, and I was like, except question number two, I don't know anything from the looks of it. Obviously, then you go into the detail and you try and think a lot, then you might be able to manage it. But in reading time, I was just like, I don't know anything apart from question number two, and that in a way can create panic because you are certain only about 14 marks out of the 70 marks paper because you don't see MCQs in those reading in that reading time. But I think luckily what happened with me was straight away from the because AFM is a subject that is inherently I feel was a strong point for me. So I was in the zone that let's target to get 80 marks in AFM, and then in others even if I get slightly less mark, I think it might work for me. But I feel one thing that helped me was from that 80 marks zone, I straight away shifted to 45 marks. I was like, ऐसे पेपर में 45 marks लेके आओ, पास हो जाओ, next paper पे जाओ, that's it. So I think that was something that helped for me, worked for me. And second point is I think usually what how I solve a paper is I solve two questions with whom I'm the most confident, and then I solve MCQs, and then I move on to the rest of paper. But in that paper, since I knew only question number two well, so I solved question number two, then I move question number two, then I move to MCQs, and then I solve balance paper. What happens in such a case is, say you know question number two, so you are pretty confident that out of 14 you can get maybe 11 marks. In MCQs, I was pretty confident that I can get 22, 24 marks out of 30. So at that point, you come to know that chalo 35 marks to ho rahe. Now in the entire paper, I just have to manage 5, 10 marks somehow. And I feel at that point, then slowly and steadily, you confidence starts coming. कि चलो 5 mark तो मैं आ ही जाएंगे. And then again in this paper, the time is never an issue because you know that 100 marks का paper any which ways आता नहीं है. तो I was like जो भी आ रहा है एकदम सोच सोच के लिखो and just leave about whether I want to attempt 100 marks ka paper or not. So I feel that was something that worked for me.
So maybe
That
managing the expectation and being kind of satisfied with even trying to aim for passing is sufficient when you are in that 3 hours.
yes, yes, in such a paper it is sufficient. Yeah.
Okay, and if you see, I mean, the entire paper had questions which were almost certainly unseen types.
Mm.
So how do you approach a question that you think, I mean, that you have not seen before? You might know the concepts, but how do you approach?
What I used to do was when there is a question which is completely new, I just used to write down numbers and whatever I can understand on the question paper itself with pencil. I used to just write down numbers. And I feel when you summarize data, because it can be a long question, international financial management on all those chapters, the questions can be pretty long. But when you summarize the data and when then you have a look at that much data only, I feel maybe I could approach questions better when I did that. So I feel that was something that I did. And secondly, I feel this is not something that you can start suddenly in exam. This is something that you have to build over the course of study leave and over the course of 3 years of your journey. I feel right from the start, you have to focus on trying to solve questions on your own. Whenever you are solving RTPs, MTPs, past exam questions, try and ensure that you are not watching faculty videos for that. Try solve on your own. And then when if you are not able to understand a particular thing, then you can always watch faculty videos. But I think that will come only with time. And in that also in the initial phases, people will struggle because in the initial phases, our brain is just not that developed that we can start seeing a new question and suddenly get confidence. That will come over the course of time. So this is not something that you can just do in exam. That is a habit that you form. And I think then eventually in exam, when you see a new question, your brain will be in a position to tackle it in a better manner.
That's very well put in. So you're saying that when you see a new question, for example, in an RTP or anywhere, you don't focus on getting it right. You just focus on just trying to develop a framework in your mind that how do I approach it. Don't have the expectation to get it right. Then you can always refer the solution of faculty video, but doing that directly may help you understand the question, but may not prepare you for a new question. Am I paraphrasing it properly?
Yes, yes, sir. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that is very helpful. And you were also saying that you used to scribble everything and used to write everything. So tell me, a very common problem that I see students face is when after they're done with their class, when they sit to revise, let's say for the first time, everything is blanked out. I mean, it's as if you're doing all over again. At that stage, if you scribble, doesn't that break your confidence or create self-doubt, or you still recommend doing it in the first revision or even just scribbling in the subsequent revisions?
I think scribbling throughout all the revisions worked for me. What happens with me is that obviously when you are scribbling, it will take slightly more time to complete the subject, especially subjects like FR, which any which ways are a huge subject. And in that consolidation questions, I think whenever I used to solve one question also, it used to take around 30-35 minutes if I
Yes.
am trying to solve it in a proper manner. But I think somewhere down the line, there is no other choice that you have. You have to scribble because what happens in CA final, it is a long journey and writing speed over the course of time because you are not in that rhythm may go down over the course. And if you are scribbling, then also your hand is sort of continuously working and it is in sort of there is muscle memory that plays here that if you are constantly writing, then slowly and steadily, I think it happens that speed will come. And hence, I feel that scribbling has two advantages. Firstly, speed part that you will your hand is because it is continuously writing, then you will be able to complete papers in exam also. And secondly, I feel when you are scribbling, what happens is I tend to remember things for a longer period of time when I'm writing and then I'm looking at it instead of I'm just looking at thing and moving ahead. So I think this were two benefits that I feel. And as a matter of fact, for each subject, especially practical subjects like FR and AFM, I think I might have used 5 rough notebooks because I used to scribble in every revision.
Wow.
So that is important as per me.
So when you are scribbling, do you focus on getting the format presentation or just more of the number crunching?
So couple of things. Firstly, numbers, and secondly, I used to write formula also because formula is something that I used to ensure that if I'm writing it, it maybe stays better in my brain. So that was two things, only formula and numbers. I did not write anything in terms of words or anything, and presentation also I did not focus a lot on it during the revision time. Obviously, when you are writing mocks, then you will understand whether you are lacking somewhere in presentation. So at that time, if you feel that you are lacking in understanding how to present a solution, at that point of time, you can focus on it. But luckily, that did not happen with me. So yeah, in when I was scribbling, I did not focus on presentation.
Okay. And did you have to refer the ICI study material for theory and other things for AFM?
So I did not refer ICI study material, but
Okay.
unfortunately, in our paper, 6 marks of MCQ that were asked of
Hmm.
merger chapter, I think that was covered in your notes also in merger chapter, but
Hmm.
because I did in theory only, I referred only those 5 chapters which usually come up in the exam.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was like, if one question comes from the other syllabus, that is a normal risk that I'm ready to take. But unfortunately, in our attempt of there were theory questions from that part, plus there were MCQs also.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think now the trend has changed slightly, and hence only for that theory part, I feel people should maybe glance through the study material, or if they're not glancing through the study material and if they're referring any faculty notes, then they should just read all those chapters theory also once, so that if a MCQ comes up in exam, at least you are able to tackle that.
Okay. And for FR also, I remember you were saying that you started with a question, you got it wrong, and you still managed to complete the entire paper. So, I mean, if you can just throw some light on FR as well, on your preparation strategy and your writing speed, and how do you manage it?
Okay, so FR, I feel in terms of volume, it is humongous. Whenever I used to sit down for a FR revision, it used to take me a lot of days because in FR the sums also are very huge in especially consolidation, business combination, JV, and all those chapters. The sums are very big, and I feel in terms of practice, what I used to do was, but FR, one thing that happens in FR is sums usually that come up in exam are usually bookish questions only.
Repetitive,
So
yeah.
I feel in terms of FR, it is more important than AFM also that you practice sums because more or less the numbers will be changed. That's it. The questions that will come will be similar. So I in FR I had a conscious effort that I made was I used to just cut down questions that I am not going to solve in subsequent revisions. And the number has to be quite big because there are just a lot of questions, and in each revision, you can't afford to solve a lot of questions. Then you will have to squeeze on a bit of time that you give to the concept book, which I would not recommend. I think in FR also reading concept book is important. So maybe all the theory questions that are there in FR, you can just do those questions in first revision and subsequently you can just solve the main questions. One thing that I would recommend in FR is all the theory questions that are there in say financial instruments chapter. Whenever I used to find something that I thought that this next revision also I should have a glance at it, I just used to write one line in my concept book only. So in the next revision, I don't have to read that question again. It's just written in my concept book. And when I read the concept book, I'll go to that line and I'll recollect that point. So those are things that you can do. In FR, especially managing time when you are doing revision is a big thing, because then people end up leaving some things in option, which I think would not be the right strategy.
Okay. And I mean, any soft skill or anything that you think really helped you overall in getting your single digit AIR apart from the hard work and constant revision, if someone has to focus on that one soft skill or trait, what would that be?
I think so. I'll say two things. First, in terms of attribute that you should have, I think it requires a lot of determination, because over the course of study leave now, considering that study leave is of 8 months, there will be a lot of phases when you feel कि नहीं हो रहा है, and there will be a lot of phases when you feel that though 2 months I did this and yet there are 6 more months that I have to do this. So it will start becoming a lot overwhelming on people. So I think at that point of time, being determined and having that frame of mind that chalo one day at a time, taking one day at a time, taking one subject at a time, and that is very important. So being very determined in terms of I want to do it, because there are going to be a lot of phases. When I'm telling you there are going to be phases, and mostly what happens is such phases come just before exam, because there is a lot of burnout that happens over the course of 6 months. You have put in so much hard work, and then when you see the final journey coming up, you start feeling slightly anxious and you start doubting also. So I feel study leave period, you have to be very determined and you have to be mentally prepared that tough phases will come. And I think in terms of second thing, what people should do is have one thing that you genuinely like and keep on doing that, maybe 1 hour every day. So for me, it was watching sports, playing sports. So that was something that I just kept on doing throughout the study leave. Obviously, when exams are near, that time you have to leave that. But over the course of first 4 or 5 months, I used to make sure that I do play some sport, do watch some sport. That is something that different people have different likings. But I think that is also important. You can't just study 15, 16 hours over a course of 8, 9 month period.
Correct, correct, correct. No, that is quite refreshing and that is quite important that you kind of need to have your, I mean, it's not even downtime, it is something that helps you recharge and it kind of, and sport is something which is very good. It builds resilience. It kind of gives you that thing that not everything is fair, but then you still stand up and you kind of go for the next paper. So that is quite helpful. And anything else that you want to share with anyone who is looking at you, aspiring, probably looking at your score and kind of feeling awestruck? What would you like to give as a last message?
I think one message I will give is don't try and make things more complex. I think try and do the basics right. To be very honest, I did not do anything extraordinary in AFM. I just referred books. I just tried and make sure that I am conceptually very clear, and that's it. I feel what I see a lot of people doing is they try and find new questions everywhere. They try and find के 10 साल के पहले एक आरटीपी में एक नया क्वेश्चन था वो मुझे मिल गया. In a lot of papers in DT and IDT also, people try and find new things. I think that is never ending. And every time you find a new question, there will be doubts that will come in your mind that मेरी book में सब कुछ cover नहीं है, मुझे और थोड़ा देखना चाहिए. And that will just never end. You will never get confidence. So I will just say one thing: try and do basics right. Try and be conceptually very clear, and things will happen. As a matter of fact, you will end up scoring more than what you expect also. That will definitely happen. Just don't be afraid. Don't panic in exams. That is very important. Just don't panic in paper. How much ever difficult the paper is, you can easily score 40 marks in it.
That's very nice. And thanks a lot, Piyush, for all your time and all your words of wisdom. Wish you all the very best. I'm sure you're going to do even better in your career and life overall. Thanks a lot and wish you all the very best.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.